Hey folks, Steve here with another Axis Empires Ultimate Edition video. After my long absence, getting part one out, this will be part two, and we're going to finish up the first turn of the scenario by looking at the Soviet faction turn, which should be pretty straightforward. I'm not even sure I'm going to show much of that on camera, and we'll try to bust into turn two. Now, uh, this first turn, June, July, just to kind of recap the last episode, we had basically Japan throwing huge amounts of effort um, into defending Saipan, the Americans throwing everything they had at getting through. We had carrier battles. We have had then supplemental surface action groups fighting to eventually get two Marine Corps involved in taking the island, which they did succeed at. Now, the naval battles, and I kind of figured this out after playing through the Battle of Midway example of play in the book to get used to just the process. The naval air battles in this system can be highly attritional very quickly. I mean, you can dish out even in the first round of combat a lot of damage. And in our very first battle, we saw two Japanese carriers sunk and three American carriers sunk. We've seen a lot of ships get kind of pushed out, pushed away. Nullifying the carriers was a big feature of that. The Japanese are down to a paltry set of carrier capabilities that are really, like historically the Battle of the Philippine Sea, um, removing much of their capability to project air power. They've got a couple of light carriers left. I think I have to double check across the board, but not much. Their big carriers have been sunk or damaged or hurt pretty badly. They may get some of that stuff back, but it's a rough situation. The Americans, having lost three carriers, that's no fun, but they are much more capable of bouncing back from that. Though it does kind of slow things down a little bit. We've put so many units in the used box over here that it's pretty crazy, all things considered. But um, elsewhere on the map, there's not a whole lot of progress for the Allies at the end of these actions. And as we start looking at the Soviet turn, I mean, talk about an uninteresting um, situation. Russia is not at war with Japan. The communist Chinese are at war, and so the China front continues to operate, but there's really maybe not a whole lot for the Soviets to do. So let's try to work our way through this as best we can. First up, we're going to talk about the very first card that we will be playing, which is Chinese Insurgency. This is a recyclable card, meaning we can play it more than once. We're going to roll a die. We're going to look at the DRMs, and then we're going to see if anything happens. And you can see if there are extreme results, which are going to come down to the DRMs helping to influence the die roll. We could get strategy board table or colonialism table. And the flavor text here, the Chinese communists conducting guerrilla operations. So we're going to play this, and then the card to be played next in the fall is going to be Demand Tanatuva, which, I mean, honestly, if I look at the map, like Tanatuva, which is like way out there, right out here, there's really like nothing there. so you kind of have to look beyond Tanatuva itself to understand like what's useful here. So we would get an HQ for Russia. That's useful. We get some additional steps. That's useful. Those are kind of like the main nice things about this card, in my opinion. Just in terms of like, what are you getting for demanding that those four hexes that don't have much meaning otherwise? The political events, though, this does kind of kick in some things around uh, political stuff that um, could create some volatile situations. I'm not sure what it's going to really mean because, and I was trying to look this up overnight, was figuring out, well, what exactly causes Russia to get into the war in the historical narrative? And if you were to look through the historical narrative card list, you would find that there's no, like, there is a Red Manor offensive card that happens, that is at like 1945, but there's really no, like, I don't see a good way to use it. You have to be at war with Japan, and to do that, you have to break the neutrality pact. And I'm just not super familiar with the way that this game works, and I'm missing something. So somebody tell me. The other sort of option that is out there on the table that would um, affect this, I think, is on the last, I guess it's the last season of the game. The last season, Japan can play peace offer, and what that could do with the political event segment is give the Soviets a political option or something, and that's how the Soviets declared war. But I'm not sure if that's, and just because that's the historical narrative doesn't mean the die rolls are going to go that way. So there's a little bit of something, I guess, for those who are more familiar with Daisenso. If you can help me help me connect with what's the historical storyboard for this, and how else can I get Russia in the war? Because right now, I mean, I would love to just dogpile right now, right this second. Let's get into Manchukuo. Let's start making hay. Let's get into Harbin. Let's get into Korea, but or Port Arthur even. But I'm not sure how we're gonna do that. So the Soviets at best can maybe move some stuff around in the interim, or attack with the Chinese communists. Um, so not a lot of fun action there. If we look at what our die rolls are going to be, we still have Axis tied to until the beginning of the next season. So that's going to be a um, +2 to the die roll modifiers. The U.S. commitment level is -2, and so I believe this just works out to be a flat die roll. So we'll roll a die, and we get a 3, which is nothing. So very exciting as the Soviets. Struggle continues. No result. Well, so much for that. Um, I'm going to have to probably change the camera angle to make any coverage of the Soviet stuff meaningful. But to be honest, I don't know that there's much for us to do here, honestly. When I look at how things are looking up there, I'm not sure I really see much to do. So we talked about like reorg segment. There's not that much to really do. If I look at the map board, again, we're kind of restricted in our ability to move to some degree. What I would probably end up doing is, let's just say I start moving units around because I want a direct line to Harbin. So maybe I like move one unit this way, I move one unit this way. Um, One unit this way to just kind of shift the weight of the Soviet line a little bit, so that we can more directly get into Harbin. That would be kind of the thing. And I look at that, I'm like, man, this isn't terribly exciting, but what can you do? That would be operational movement. We can't really attack other than the Chinese communists. And if I look at the Chinese communist situation, there's not a whole lot of good options. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'd be attacking 2 to 1. Shifted. Oh, well, no, because then the Japanese have HQs. I mean, I don't see where the Chinese communists can really attack and expect to have any success. And I guess that's where I'm stuck. Um, we don't want to lose stuff because let's say the Chinese communists disintegrate up there in the north. Well, then the Japanese could convincingly try to get into Lanchao, and then we would be another strategic hex, and the whole is the Allies. So I'm, I don't know that I would play Daisenso as a three-player game, just because so far this is incredibly not entertaining for the Soviets. There's just not much for them to do. And now, granted, that's how it is. So, um, but just knowing that, like, hey, if you were to break this out as a game by itself, not playing the global war, the Soviets, yeah, don't have much to do here. And even controlling the Chinese communists, there's not a lot of great options for them to leverage here. So just going to be slow going. A lot of stalemate everywhere on the board. I need to figure out how to get the Soviets in. I need to figure that out. I don't know. Again, trying to look at the rules, trying to figure out like, well, how do you break some of this stuff? Um, because the neutrality pact are not they're not truce markers. I don't believe, right? These are we're not talking about truce markers. Um, can double check this, but yeah, reassess, armistice, negotiation. Those are all truce markers, but we're affected by a neutrality pact. And when I try to look at the rules, obviously it'd be a little ahistorical to start fighting Japan as Russia now, but um, I don't I don't see what I can do to break it at this point. I'm gonna have to wait for a different policy. So we talk about like involuntarily ending a policy. You play an option card that ends a policy, and that I've not seen, at least in the historical set of cards, I've not seen that be clear. A country resists could do it. Um, so maybe with the demand Tanatuva stuff, that could be what kind of breaks out. Um, and then voluntarily ending it, end a policy during its political events segment. Well, that's only for the Axis. Okay. So any faction may voluntarily end a policy by applying a neutral's pressured or political option political event. And like I said, the Japanese peace offer card might enable the Soviets to do that, but um, we're really kind of strung up here. We can't really change the situation much at all. So really limited ability to do anything there, which is a shame for Russia. Again, historically accurate, all the whole situation probably shouldn't be easy just to do it. Other games handle this a different way. We are in a policy affected country situation, so not much to be done there. Now, reserve movement. We could do some reserve movement, so let's, we go square and uh, there you go. There we go. And there you go. Um, Not terribly exciting again, but so it goes. So it goes. I should also point out we do have, and I don't know the best way to use this. There's a Far East logistics marker that we have. I don't know where it makes the most sense to place this. Um, I might have to look and ensure that we can put replacements on the map as the Soviets, because that could be, I guess that would be the thing. If for some reason we can't do replacements in any of the usual areas, we'd want to plop that down somewhere. So placing replacements, and let's see. A Russian unit can be placed in a Soviet off map box, so we would know that. A Russian unit can be placed in a hex containing a Russian logistics marker if that marker can trace an overland supply line to a supply source in Russia or the Soviet off map box. That's great. Um, A unit can be placed in any city hex within its home country. And I mean, I believe that Russia is all part of the home country of Russia, unless we're going to say that um, Transbaikal, Siberia are not part of Russia, which, I mean, maybe that's the case. But they don't, I don't think it calls them dependents. So I would expect that we can place them there. So, um, yeah. So we have options in terms of cities. So Irkutsk, Chita, that's a city. City. Vladivostok's obviously a city. So I guess I'm not sure where I'd want to put that Far East logistics marker. Maybe I would wait to place it if, uh, yeah, boy, I don't know. Um, let's try to understand why we even have it. We can place a Soviet logistics marker in any road or rail hex that contains or is adjacent to a HQ unit that can trace blah blah blah. Okay. Well, for lack of a better idea, what I guess I would have done is try to place this before the HQ. I would have had to have moved them before the HQs moved, and so um, we could maybe stick it here. I don't think that does. I don't think that does us a whole lot of good, to be honest, because we have cities nearby. So why do I have this thing? Is there some place that I need to figure out that's better than that? Um, I don't know, but I'm gonna stick it up there. It's kind of hard to see, guys, but I'm not gonna spend the effort to get the camera pointed up there, other than maybe just to show you guys very briefly what I'm talking about. Do you see that? Adjusting the camera stand to do this all the time is time consuming. Anyway, okay, enough with that. I think the Soviets are done. I don't think that there's much more for them to do. Um, we're going to call that good. Now, in terms of maybe it's the conditional events that I'm under appreciating that could matter here. So, um, if we said, hey, we're done, no regular combat, there's nothing to do, permanent conditional events, Russian Far Eastern forces. If Russia's posture is war, which it's not, um, yeah, okay, so we don't get to do that. European reserves, that might be worth looking at. Aid to communist China. Um, I don't think that's going to apply. Lend lease. Okay, I'm going to have to look up some of these uh, permanent conditional events for Russia, but I'm going to run through those when I'm back here in a second for you. We'll talk about any of the permanent conditional events that will have applied, and we will have worked probably through the delay segment and resolve the return to base. So at the end of the turn, all these guys, or any other ships that were in the used boxes out there, are going to return to their base to be used again. Now, I will say the throttle on our naval air operations is not just the ships, but also the support markers. So the Japanese don't have a whole lot in the way of support markers right now, and the delay segment may modulate that quite a bit. The Allies still have plenty. So as the ships return back to port, the Allies already still have multiple support markers to use to continue their drive and continue to operate. So that's kind of the key thing for them as we move through the turn. Okay, just quickly relating before we get into the June July turn. Japanese kind of got a mixed bag of delay results, and so nothing catastrophically bad. Nobody got a roll of six on the delay segment that would have forced them, way out basically for any particular naval unit or marker. So everything within the next six turns, the Japanese do have a +1 diral modifier from Allied bombing, but it wasn't as impactful as I was hoping. The Allies have a -2 on their delay segment, and so they performed much better, but in some cases, not getting some units back for like a couple of turns, a few turns, which can slow things down a little bit. Now, we did have some reinforcements that were pre allocated. We had some assets in the used assets box that get to be placed in air or naval bases on the map. And so you can kind of see many of the fleets returning to their main base of operations. So, Guadalcanal being a basing location for a pretty decent sized fleet. We still have backstop fleets at both Honolulu and New Caledonia. And we then also have a primary fleet operating out of our service squadron hex in the Marshall Islands. We do have control of Saipan, but Saipan is a three-step location, so we can't build up a whole lot there. But I do have air units based there to kind of help protect, the same way that the Japanese try to protect their territory. And even as it stands right now, the Japanese, after all the reinforcements and this, that, and the other, are basically down to their they have an Air Force support marker and a CV fleet marker, and that's kind of it for a little while, at least until the next turn. Um, so as we go into turn two and we kick it back over to the Japanese, there's not a whole lot that they're going to be able to do right now. If I look around for counter punches, what they could try to do is shift some forces into Guam and make Guam, highly annoying to deal with. We still can project air power because Guam can act as an air base or even a naval base for that matter, and we can fly planes to it. So if we wanted to, we could continue to try to contest Saipan. I think it's certainly worthwhile to consider doing that just because of the situation where, if you really think about it, like having that port enables us to be able to project supply out. We've got to put the markers out there, but we can deploy out to the Philippine Sea and we can supply a push towards the Philippines, which is sort of the next logical place. The card that initiates that isn't until the fall, so we actually have a little bit of time here as the allies to try to figure out, like, can we use some of our markers to get into another location, whether that be Rabaul or Truck or I don't know, Iwo Jima might be a little too cavalier, but it makes sense now that we've penetrated the defensive perimeter. We should start eyeballing where we can hit next, and also out here, we do need to figure out how are we going to relieve the Dutch East Indies, because I do have a need to get in there and help them out. Right now, or last turn, the South Monsoon region had crappy weather, which was not good for any operations. Now the weather in the south is let's see, snow. I'm sorry, no, that's south. Oh no, oh no, I screwed that up. Last turn I was thinking all of the Dutch East Indies had mud, and they didn't. They did not. That's the south, which is New Zealand in the weather area. My goodness, guys. Anyway, as it stands right now, the central region, which is really up in mainland China, is mud. The North Monsoon, which is the Philippines, so I guess that kind of nixes our idea for the Philippines right now. the Philippines, the Malayan Peninsula, and basically all of this up here. That is now, um, yeah, North Monsoon. That is all mud. Central region is mud, and then in New Zealand, not highly relevant, it is snow. So the weather is going to be a factor here. That June, July. This is very different in the Pacific Asia theaters of weather, even in what we would refer to as summer for maybe your European map, as is appropriate here. So the weather is going to kind of matter. If I look at it and go, well, if our south monsoon region is in fact clear, that does kind of open things up to try to finish clearing out Rabaul and maybe truck as our primary areas of concern. We can even start entertaining ideas of Iwo Jima. So those are maybe, if we're going to do any other additional operations this turn, island combat and the fighting around Rabaul and New Guinea, those seem like obvious locations. The Philippines are off the cards for this turn at least, and we'll worry about that in the fall when the cards are coming up again. I do need I do need to get the British moving somewhere, either in Burma or figure out a way to get into this region. Um, the the one thing I guess we could do, as I'm looking at it, is um, we could try to some kind of back way to get up in here. I'm just not sure the best way to do this. It's going to take more replacements set up for the British maybe to kind of have some oomph to get in here, because basically we'd want to either take kind of get through Burma, get into Singapore, get into Batavia, and kind of won that whole theater. While we still need to make progress here. So anyway, we're going to get into the Axis turn, and what I'm probably going to do, I'm probably just going to play through the Axis turn and show you the aftermath. We're just going to have to speed things up. If there's a big naval combat, we'll kind of show and talk about that. But I think right now, I'm just going to kind of play through and until we get to some good events to talk about, because we'll be here forever if I don't do that. So when we come back, maybe some more things will have happened. We'll at least get through the Axis turn, Japanese turn. Okay, hey folks, I jumped ahead a little bit to the end of the June July turn. I've already done the delay segment, and maybe not a too terribly exciting turn. We did try to do a raid and against the Japanese, as the Americans. Ultimately, I should say, so the Japanese didn't do a whole lot on their turn. They shuffled some units around, trying to provide better defensive coverage, but they're really not much that they could do. They did put some units in Okinawa just to try to hold, but already we feeling like we're in deep trouble. Like this was a very fast result that we're seeing here, where we've kind of lost most of our fleet at this point, and things aren't looking good. Now the Japanese didn't lose a lot of their fleet, or at least have it off map until the American, or the I should say Western Allies turn, where we fought to get an air force over Rabaul. That actually didn't do a lot for us because our units aren't in position, but that's just to keep the Japanese from being able to reinforce Rabaul itself from those nearby hexes. We did fight a naval battle off the coast of Truk, actually, and it was kind of attritional for both sides, but generally now, because of the delayed DRMs, like it's going to be worse off for the Japanese. And the Americans still have plenty of ships to leverage at this point. I then, with the idea that I was going to put some kind of CV strike marker over, not CV strike marker, I was going to do something here with Truk, and then I decided to change my mind, and having cleared the Japanese support markers, we instead did a landing here at Panape, east of Truk, with the idea that coming into this last turn of summer, we are going to use that island as a jumping off point to attack Truk, and be able to get better air coverage over it, and hit it, because basically they were weak here, and we could just plop in, and now we can use that as a springboard for air cover, to get into Truk. And we're certainly going to want to do that. I mean, I think we kind of have to, At this point, I'd like to get truck. I'd like to get Rabaul. I don't think historically the Americans got into truck by the end of the war. But I'd like to do that since we kind of got Saipan right away. We still need to get Guam. I haven't been too worried about that for the moment. The thing is, while the Japanese fleet has certainly been trashed, the Japanese Air Force still remains a concern. Those tend to come back. So the only way to really snuff out air power is to, destroy them, defeat them, and hope that the delay box throws them out way farther afield. So there's still a lot of Japanese air, land-based air, that can continue to pose problems for us. The Japanese still control the number of bases. The range makes it difficult. Um, so I'd like to do what I can to try to break through here, then focus this next season on getting some units into the Philippines, and get operating. I have a hard time figuring out how exactly I'm going to get all the sea lift that I need to get up there, and make a concerted effort in the Philippines. So that is kind of a puzzle to me, but I think we're going to get some support with political events once we get into the Philippines proper, with some of the American Philippine units being able to come back in. Um, so we're going to have to look at that. So we'll see. I don't know, like getting into Saipan as easily as we did, or as luckily as we did, I kind of thought like, okay, that gives us some time. But the time's going to be shifting enough. We're going to have to be concerned more with the Philippines very, very soon. So I guess I've just got to figure out how I want to play that. Um, but otherwise, that's where things stand. Russians not doing much maneuvering. At this point, again, the Western Allies have a preponderance of support markers. They have a preponderance of naval units. The air, you can kind of match up a little bit. Now it's about trying to get good air bases so we can actually project our air power against truck or other islands. We need to keep in mind the same thing. Like, do we try to get into Palau before we try to get into Davao? That may be needed because we might need to take this first somehow, or even take Ulithi first and then use that to get here. I think the challenge, or what I'm running into as sort of the bottleneck, is that you only get one beachhead marker. So like that's your beachhead marker for the turn. I don't see where I get another beachhead marker. Like I don't think I get more than the one that I have, I think. And if I'm getting that wrong, boy, that's going to throw this game off pretty big. Um, and that kind of means that I don't have the leeway to get British troops pointed at the Dutch East Indies, though I'd like to do that too. So kind of a weird, it's like a really concentrated effort, trying to make gains where I can make gains. The collapse is probably going to happen pretty quickly with the Japanese. That like, okay, their fleets are gone, so we really just need to focus firepower um, on the places we need to take, deploy, multiple, air units to get as many shifts as possible, and that's the kind of thing that we're going to start to work through and articulate how we're gonna get in there. So anyway, I'm gonna go into this next term, which is going to be again July August 1944. We are making progress. We're starting to see strategic hexes flip um, towards the Allies, which will help. We also, I should point out, have both of these markers that came in as reinforcements this turn. Intensive bombing and material shortages. Material shortages adds a DRM to the Axis delay, and the intensive bombing will as well, because Saipan, which is an air base, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hexes away from a Japanese home city, which means that condition applies. So when we get to the beginning of autumn, I should point out, the Japanese are going to get shifted down an Axis tide spot, I think. So they're going to lose some of their die roll benefit, and then they're going to have all these penalties, and it's going to be something like +4 to their delay die rolls from here on out probably, and it's only going to get worse. So as the Japanese start to lose stuff, we're not going to expect to see any of that stuff back for a very long time. So you can imagine, we build up enough momentum, we should be able to make some good gains across the board consistently. At least that'll be the idea. So anyway, let me get into July, August. I'll play through some of that turn, and when we come back, we'll see what happens. All right, here we are at now what is going to be the beginning of autumn. And I think I'll play through these couple of autumn turns and call it a video. I'm obviously skipping over a lot of activities, and even for those sea battles around Truck, I didn't even show that. I think there's to a certain point. I'm hoping that the previous videos are illustrating the way that the game is played. At this point, just a warning to those watching. I think the rest of the videos in the series will really just be the cataloging of what happens across the turns and some thoughts along the way, and the different ways that I'm sort of interpreting how things are going in the game. um, so if you're really looking at this as a how to play, this is certainly not for you at this point. But we're going to keep playing through. What I'm finding is I'm getting very lucky with my Marines, and I have taken Truck, which is ahistorical. I don't think the Allies took Truck during the course of the war, which gets us another strategic hex against the Axis and puts us in a very good position to operate um, generally around that area now. So the threat of the Japanese Navy can only really come from certain areas. There are some spots where we need to be careful because we could expose ourselves to some danger. But at this point, the Japanese Navy has vacated even Singapore and is really all that's left besides the home fleet, which is used as the last ditch effort for scratch defense purposes, is stationed out of Taihoku, and it's just a couple of fleet carriers and like one light carrier is left of the carrier force, a group, like two battleships, and a setup of light cruisers, or cruisers, I guess is really the term, cruisers. We still have a fair number of cruisers as the Japanese, but honestly, like we're really talking about one decent, strong task force that can operate. Um, Really not much to work with, and meanwhile, the Allies are overflowing with ships, even for the losses that they've taken. So we do have, because Truck is a really good port, we actually can look at transferring a lot of our American ships either down here or over here. We probably want to leave a little bit just in case something gets squirrely, but we can move these guys up forward because the stacking of a major port will help us, and then we can look at relocating our service squadron. And this just gives us the ability to push forces up against the Philippines. That's really the main reason why Truck is so good, and it just allows us now to push the American fleets really all the way over to near Singapore, uh, basically. So we can look at maybe even moving some of these fleets over here, start to push. We just our fleet reach has increased a great deal for having Truck. That's kind of the big thing. Rabal, however, continues to be a nut that I just can't seem to crack. The Japanese have managed to keep units in there that I just can't attack with enough force to make a big difference. Um, and via a bonsai political event, the SNLF actually pushed the British out of this port location in the Solomons, which Japanese are really not in a good position to make use of it, but it does make an annoying situation worse. So I need to crack that nut and get Reval back. I really want that. Because once I take that, then we really can surge forces into the zone over here and will not be able to be stopped. We can maybe get into Borneo or Batavia via the other end of it. Um, the British are kind of not super active right now. They are building up forces for offensives in Burma. And at some point, they're going to be looking to leverage their own support markers in some sort of attacks. Uh, Either, once we've kind of cleared Burma up a bit, looking to maybe do some naval invasions of our own if we get a spare second, to try to get into Teluk Betong, and from there attack into Batavia and Palembang and try to relieve the Dutch East Indies proper. Um, but the next sort of objective for the Americans at this point will be the Philippines. The next card that they'll be playing is really based all around getting into the Philippines. But one interesting thing when we go into the August September turn is that the weather it basically clears up everywhere except for the North Monsoon, which includes the northern part of Borneo, Malaya, into China, this whole area, India, but includes the Philippines, which means that in some cases, and we can see there's like the dashed lines here, that actually makes it hard to approach. And basically, if we were going to start the invasion against the Philippines in the August September turn, I would only be doing it through my forces available in Saipan and Truck, which is really not much. I have a different plan, which would be to wait until September, October when the weather clears in the North Monsoon region. It gets back to crappy in the South Monsoon. Um, but for um, oh no, I'm screwing this up, guys. I'm sorry. So here's the deal. While the weather in the South Monsoon is clear, we can do all hex placement. So we do want to invade. It's just that when we go to invade Davao, the hex there will be um, affected by mud. So we have to kind of pick how we use our support markers a little carefully. There's a little bit of a weirdness here. The reason why I want to come through the Bismarck Sea, which being an allied danger zone, I've got to kind of make sure we're set for that. But we have this service squadron. I'm sorry, the fleet train that we would use here as a troop convoy. It's a special one. Okay, see, fleet train. What's special is this allows a unit of any size to be transported. So if I'm reading this right, and gosh, I could be wrong, honestly. Who knows? Um, what I would like to do is get the new beachhead pointed at Davao, and then pick up this unit that I've built up over some time, this guy, and stick him right there. And that should be more than enough to bust into Davao. And then from there, that unit could potentially just simply move across the map towards the capital in Manila, and we would satisfy the political event stuff. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's what I'd like to be able to do. Um, Control of this critical port at Leh is kind of a big factor because it's a multi-zone port, allows us to move across again that area. But I haven't placed all that stuff yet. We'll get there in the ally turn. So that's kind of what the allies are thinking, right? Like that's the big move. It could be challenging to get into Davao right away. Like a safer call would be to get into Palau, but we'll have to see. The Japanese do have air power to protect themselves, so they can try to block the placement of some support markers. They have ample air forces to do it. The challenge is the Japanese are down for this coming turn to two support markers, and that's it. They have an air force marker, they have a carrier marker. And if just trying to use those in a vacuum to stop the Americans, it's not going to be enough, to be honest. It's going to be um, enough to chip away at their support markers, but the Allies have so many. The Allies currently have one CV fleet, one surface fleet, two air forces. If I try to figure out like how else do how else do we make this work? I guess it could be. I think I forgot to. What am I doing with this guy? I think he used to be here. Um, that's my bad. Uh, if I try to war game this out for a second, like okay, we go to send a CV fleet to put an air unit over here because that's the only way we can get over there, right? Well, the Japanese can then spend uh, spend their either their air marker or their CV marker to contest it, right? You figure no matter what that battle really looks like, it's probable that both sides return to base basically, and that's one marker used. Then uh, the Americans could use their well now this is the tricky part here, guys. This is the tricky part. Maybe we don't have enough support markers. We'd have to figure out some other way to make this work. Because I am thinking that the Allies probably have the capability to um, to try to get into Davao, but they would need probably another surface fleet to make this work. Now that I'm looking at it, this could be a problem. We could get slowed down here a bit. And it's because I've overcommitted some of my air forces to trying to keep Rabaul suppressed, and this could come back to bite me big time. Um, Yikes. Okay. Well, this is a problem. This is a big problem. I need to think about how I want to do this. Now, the alternative, I guess I could look at is, um, oh boy, yeah, none of these options are great. They're all just okay. Um, and what it could mean is that we don't take a port in the Philippines until September, October. I'd rather not have to do that. But we may not have a choice. The Allies are gonna get more of their support markers next turn. So maybe this first turn coming up in the fall is really going to be about just trying to attrit the Japanese markers. And of course, the Japanese are going to start to get some stuff back too. So I don't know. I mean, it feels like the Americans are on a good roll here, but it's also highly dependent on their activity. So we can simply try to drain the Japanese of their markers and kind of put them in such a bad state that we force the issue, but we're not going to get into Davao in the first part of the fall turn, I guess. Just to wrap one part of this up very quickly, I've been rambling a bit here. This is the next card for the Americans, Operation King. So we're going to get some more units in the delay box. We're going to get some more steps on the board. That's going to be really important. I'm probably going to use these 2 U.S. steps to try to get my Marines back in order because we're doing a lot of landings. We're going to need our Marines. And then you can see here we're going to do some minor country politics. I'll have to see what our good options are there. And then if a supplied U.S. ground unit occupies a city hex in locations, you can apply colonial liberation, and that's really what we need to do for the Philippines, potentially. I have to go look at colonial liberation. Now, after that, so talking about winter, we're going to have the Cricket Conference, which gets us some additional stuff, which will be good. And really that's the best we can hope for. So some political stuff happening over winter, conferences occurring. For the Japanese, we are going to see some interesting things here. So we have the Shogo Defense Plan, which means we're going to get the kamikazes marker in the strategic box. We'll figure that out here shortly. Japanese are going to get some additional steps. And then if the government marker is in the holding box, place it in the delay box. Well, it's currently the Navy is still the leaders of the government for the moment. And then when we get into winter, they have balloon bombs, which are going to give them some defensive units that'll come in handy, home defense units. And then you can see that there's some additional things that are going to help provide steps. But I will say that if the VP marker is axis tied, I guess it's still probably going to be axis tied by the time this card comes up, even if we continue to make progress as the Allies. So Japan's going to get some benefits. The Russians are going to be playing this Demand Tanatuva. So there could be some interesting things that come out of this. It would be really nice if maybe this triggered some sort of war for the Soviets against Japan. That would be very helpful. And their next card, which will be played next, is Border Defense, which is nothing. This is just the historical narrative of the cards, which I'm sticking to because I don't feel comfortable making any wild changes. Given we're already late in the war, and these things we should be able to play through the history a bit. So let me play through this August-September turn and see where the Americans have gotten to. Ideally, even if they've not taken a hex in the Philippines, they will have denuded the strength of the Japanese such that we can expect to do this on the next turn. So yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, here we are about to start the September-October turn of fall, and things have really kind of gotten a little iffy, to be honest. We did use this first turn to take control of Palau, which is important because we need to have an air base within 3 hexes of Davao to be able to operate out of the Bismarck Sea due to the Allied danger zone. So that was kind of tricky. We did get Palau. It took a lot of effort, and I have to say, I think I've mismanaged a few things. And this could put us off. Well, it's gonna. This next turn is gonna be interesting because what I should have done is instead of building up that multiple step unit down here, and I kind of did that accidentally, focusing on Rabaul. I should have known that I really wanted that unit ready to go into the Philippines, and I should have built it up somewhere over here, and then I don't know, figured out some way to build it up, get it ready, and send it to the Philippines with the fleet train. As it stands right now, we're really kind of out of position to do that. And what I'd like to do at this point, how I think the Philippines campaign is going to go, and it's not going great right now, is I need to put all power and force into landing in either Davao or up here in Apari and get a hold of the city, get the liberation event, and then when we get our fleet train marker back, and right now the delay DRMs for the Allies is super good. It's -3. It's just fantastic. Um, that should enable us to drop the big unit in the Philippines to finish mopping up. Because that these big units, they're only so good at so many things. We can worry about the rest of the activities later. The other thing would be to have just committed that unit to attacking um, Rabal. And right now, like I'm not getting anywhere with Rabal. I'm really going to have to figure out what I'm going to do with this guy because, or these guys, because I'm really not getting anywhere with the campaign, and that needs to change. I really need that hex. Now, I should also say that we had some minor country politics remove a unit in Saigon. So right now, Indochina's actually empty. If we can get an allied unit into Saigon, then we're going to be able to deprive them of another strategic hex. But I think technically, because Indochina was a uh, dependent aligned with Japan in the scenario information, the Axis still controls Saigon. So we've got to get in there and try to take it, is basically how that's going to operate. So um, lots of different things going on. Lots of things we need to focus on. I definitely want to get into the Philippines. We need to do that this coming turn, and then we can spend the winter maybe trying to follow up these activities with a push onto uh, the Dutch East Indies. It's really important we try to make some ground there and relieve that force, and then that kind of enables us to um, clean up this part of the map and pick up a few more strategic hexes. If we were to get control of the Java Sea, that would then enable us to um, think about progressing um, up to Saigon at some point along the way. So that Allied danger zone definitely puts a spin on things that I didn't really appreciate until we were now trying to get into the Philippines and kind of the weird configuration that we have to deal with. So we're going to be dealing with that, that's for sure, and we'll see what else occurs here. But generally, just for the Soviets, like not a lot happening. They annexed Tanatuva, they got some units out of it. That's about it. The Allies feeling the pressure to get in the Philippines. The Japanese, at this point, I should point out, with the kamikaze marker in play, that improves the Japanese delay modifier, but it also means we can't use support markers on the attack. And so really limited capability for the Japanese to respond to anything. Like they can't attack, they can't counterpunch anywhere. At best, they can try to ship units around, but that's kind of it. And so, and honestly, in China, there's like nothing really happening. It's all like none of the attacks feel worthwhile. One pear-shaped die roll and the whole front kind of gets screwed up, and neither side really wants to do that. So right now, it's all the American advance in the Pacific as we're trying to clean up. We need to get in a revolt. We need to make all this stuff happen. A part of me is even thinking like I should not. Maybe I should not have. Here's what I'm thinking. I think I need to take back an action. I think I need to just give up on trying to transport this guy into the Philippines right now. Um, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna make a correction here, and we're gonna have instead move this guy into here, and um, I don't know what else I might have done with some of these guys. Maybe I would have shipped another unit instead, somewhere else. Let me fix some stuff, guys. We'll see if that makes any difference. Okay, yeah, I decided I undid something. I pulled this unit back. We're not using the fleet train, and we would have used a different troop convoy here and shipped one of those American corps. So we have 3 corps sitting in Palau now, and to begin thinking through, yeah, through other advances that we're going to need to make. We're still leaving Guam unattended. There's no real reason to focus too much on it. Um, it's the shipping pipeline choke point stuff that I'm getting spun up on. How fast can you move forces around? And this is very different from Europe, where you form up big units and you just fight it out. Here, you've really got to think through how are units getting where and how fast you can move them around. So we're going to have to just invest this guy in it, trying to bash down Rabal at this point. We've got to make that happen. We've got to break in there somehow. We're kind of losing too much time not picking up that hex when we should have really been doing that a while ago. Problem's going to be the Japanese are going to be able to move this guy in here, and they're going to have more steps to defend with. So it's this tug of war. We've got to find a moment to use our blitz marker down here to get some benefits, and we don't have the bandwidth for it. We just don't have the blitz markers to make that headway. So, okay, so we're going to go into now the September-October turn. Weather in the south monsoon is now mud, and so we can't really use this to place markers. We have to come at the Philippines via the Philippine Sea. The Japanese have just enough of a naval force that they can try to use their singular surface fleet marker to try to fend off the Allies. But I think this is going to be a pretty simple case of swarm, over swarm to make the combats happen. So, yeah, let me get started with the Japanese. We'll get through this turn. I'll show the end result, and we'll probably wrap up the video. Okay, here's another check-in. This is the end of fall, about to head into winter. So the Allies have returned to the Philippines, though in a less strategic location, but just the Japanese were shifting steps between the ports of the Philippines with some of their capability. I mean, it's really, I struggle trying to find like where are the good places to try to go here. With what limited capability the Japanese now have, they could still use their troop convoys to shuffle troops around, which is what I've been trying to do. And either way, the Americans still found a place. They used a preponderance of carrier strikes against the port, and we managed to take it and are now solidifying our control. What's good about this is, however slow, however long it takes, we have ground forces in the Philippines that can kind of march across the islands and eventually um, get to both Manila and Davao. We don't have to worry about putting beachheads down. That might make it faster. But over the course of the turns, we've got some time to try to get through and knock out those locations and get the other 2 strategic hexes. The other nice thing it gives us is a port that connects to the South China Sea. Now it's an Allied danger zone, which poses some problems for us, but we can look to say, like, maybe try to land somebody in Hue and march down to Saigon and get that under control. We've got some flexibility there, but again, it's all the timing. The fact that we only have the one beachhead marker means we have to be very selective with where we go. In the grand strategy of things, we're still needing to prepare to go to Rabaul. Here's the key thing about taking Rabaul out. I need to basically have multiple air units available to surround to get the maximum number of shifts. That would be enough to kind of knock things loose in Rabaul. And I'd have to dedicate a blitz marker. So I'd have to kind of, one, have a card that has a blitz marker, dedicate the offensive to picking up that strategic hex, and then ideally getting it. And right now, that's a lot of resources that have been applied to capture other locations. So Rabaul's going to continue to be a pain in the ass, but I need to be looking further afield because soon I need to be thinking about Iwo Jima. I need to be thinking about Okinawa, so that we have the home islands under threat. The Japanese Navy is practically non-existent, but it's still a matter of using our markers to overcome them. And I guess this is the part of the thing that I feel is maybe a negative, that we're stuck with we're stuck using the support markers as our metered way of controlling the situation, and it like the design intent is to not have Shifts Creed totally upend the game, but at the same time, it's like, well, there's almost, I don't know that I feel the impact of having these ships. I mean, it's cool to fight the ship battles, but at the end of the day, at least at this late stage of the war, it doesn't feel like it changes that much. So whatever scrap ships the Japanese have left, they can't use them because they don't have the markers right now. So they just kind of sit there being useless in many ways, which is kind of a bummer. It's like I wish I could do a little bit more with them. Maybe I could try some raids, and that's kind of your extra way to get some oomph out of your units. But there's really not much reason to even try against the Americans. We have all these ships hanging out in truck. We are going to place a new service squadron marker probably in Saipan, so we'll be able to put all of our forces there and be operating that much closer to the home islands. So, and in terms of the Allied danger zone of the home islands, just in case we start talking about trying to invade the home islands, um, to to start with, the best place that we're going to have to actually get there is to get into this port via a beach landing. And to do that, because of the Allied danger zone, we do need to be in control of Okinawa to really have a good shot at Okinawa. Well, I guess we could launch it from here, so that's feasible. We do want to get Iwo Jima as well, if we can, strategic hex anyway. So all those things start to factor in here, in terms of where we're getting. I will point out I have breached the Burma line. That was a combination of, now that the Commonwealth has had a chance to kind of pull its own resources and don't have the Japanese kind of picking on them, they could deploy their own air force in a CV strike, and that allows um, enough shifts that we could entertain an attack, and we rolled well enough that we've cracked the Japanese line pretty heavily, actually. So over the course of the next few turns, while we don't have a blitz marker, and that's really what would help the situation, um, we can at least continue to make some progress. We'll get Rangoon back. We could probably march into Siam. Then we have a land route to Singapore and Saigon from that angle. So long as we can keep up some momentum and movement, we should be in pretty good shape to keep moving. I still want to figure out how to get down here. We had the political event force a step loss in Palembang. So really, so long as we can get some kind of opening here, we can try to get into the Philippines. We could drop maybe a beachhead here, get into this port, and then fight our way into Batavia with its one unit there. Apply enough British force, and we could pop it. The other thing we could do is try to ship some American units over there. It's kind of a pain to get over there at this point, so I'm not sure how soon we're going to get through that. It'd be really convenient if we somehow got another event that allowed us to remove a step. This is a two-step guy, but anything would help right now to try to seal that up, because that's going to be worth a couple of strategic hexes. As we start looking into this next turn, um, just to round up kind of what's the score right now for strategic hexes as we wrap up this video. The Axis remains in control of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strategic hexes, and the Allies are in control of 1, 2, 3, 4 Axis strategic hexes, at least by my accounting, which puts us at a +2. So as we enter the winter of 1944, the Axis tide marker is still up, but we are in the 0 VP box. So no more benefit for the delay DRM. So the Japanese are going to continue to fall apart from that perspective. And as soon as we can get basically one more strategic hex, that's going to shift it to Allied Crusade, which should give us all the benefits we need to just continue to hammer things home and execute all the things we need to execute. I really need to pay attention to the beachheads, though. Where can I make progress without spending a beachhead? I need to be able to get. I really need to get to -9 Allied Crusade to get 3 victory points for the victory. I'm not sure where all those are going to come from. It's tough even getting here, and I have to look at like what happens if I invade the home islands of Japan. Like, does that get us something? Does that give us some oomph? That would be good to understand. What we can do there. I've got some unconventional ideas on how to quickly gain um, on the situation, but it's come from the north and do some wacky stuff to march south across the islands to grab victory hexes. I don't know if that's going to work. So really, just trying to explore this, trying to figure out how we end up with a victory. It is hard to figure that out. So yeah, tough guys. This is tough. Again, the historical result is a tie, which is technically an Axis victory. So in terms of victory points, so we're going to have to keep pushing and keep hoping for some clearer breakthrough that we can leverage to win victory. So anyway, that's it, guys. That's the summer and fall turns of 1944. In the next video, we'll go to winter, spring, probably, of 45. We'll see what happens. See you in the next one. Take care. Keep gaming.